or TV series lit your fuse when you were a young man and made you have to tell stories on screen?
I literally have told this story thousands of times, but it's true. So I grew up in LA, and when I was 8 years old, so in 1958, I saw a movie at the Crest Theater on Westwood Boulevard called The Seventh Voyage of Sinbad. It was a Columbia picture. Ray Harryhausen did the effects. It's a seminal movie in lots of kids my age. If you talk to Peter Jackson or Steve Spielberg or George Lucas, there's millions of them. The movie had a profound impact on my generation, and especially on me, because I had what's called complete suspension of disbelief. I was there. I totally loved it. And I went home and I asked my mother, who makes the movie? Who does that? And she answered, surprisingly, she said, the director. So from the time I was 8 years old, all my energy, all my efforts were to become a director when I grew up. So when I was legally able to, I left school and I lied and got a job, lied about my age, and got a job in the mailroom at 20th Century Fox. And I just wanted to get near production as much as I could to learn about it. And in Los Angeles, especially in the 60s, in the 50s and 60s, you know, you could go in the phone book and look up King Vidor, you know, William Wellman, these guys. So I met incredible numbers of great filmmakers. I sought them out. My friends and I would roam the back lots. Sadly, they're, I guess, universal, but they're not like they used to be, you know. But I was a movie-obsessed kid. Being a mail boy was pretty fabulous for me because there were lots of picture shooting, a lot of TV shows. So I could go on the set of Altman's MASH and then go over to Lost in Space, you know, and I just loved it. I watched them shoot the miniatures for Tora, 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 where, it's now Century City, but where what was it, Nakatomi Towers, you know, the Marvin Davis building that they used for Die Hard? Yeah. That's where this giant tank was with these enormous miniatures, big explosions. I just loved it. And eventually, this is very quick, eventually I was offered, if I could get by Andrew Marton, Bundy Marton, American-Hungarian director, famous for directing The Chariot Race and Ben-Hur. But Bundy offered me a job if I could get to Yugoslavia and catch up with the unit in Belgrade. He'd just been hired to direct second unit on a movie that was released as Kelly's Heroes. So I had, from my mailboy adventures, I'd earned about $1,200 by then. We were paid $50 a week. And I bought a one-way ticket to London, TWA, $800. And I showed it to my mom. And I said, look, I have a job with, you know, on this movie in Yugoslavia. Here's the ticket. She went, wow! So she believed me. And I flew to London. I was totally ignorant. I mean, where's Yugoslavia? Is Belgrade near here? You know, but I ended up getting my way, 1969, to Belgrade. And 18 years old, I ended up working the whole shoot. It was 9 months. This enormous World War II movie, very silly, with Clint Eastwood and Donald Sutherland and Telly Savalas and Don Rickles. Many people I actually worked with much later, including most of the crew. When 10 years later, maybe longer, I made An American Werewolf in London, which is a British film. I had almost the entire grip and electric from Kelly's Heroes. But so after Kelly's Heroes, a guy named Jim O'Rourke and I went to Spain because we heard about the spaghetti boom, which is, you know, Franco, like all good fascists, you know, understood the power of film. Like, you know, Mussolini built Cinecittà and started the Venice Film Festival. In any case, in Spain, there was an enormous amount of international filming going on. And everybody knows about the spaghetti westerns. I actually worked for Sergio Leone several times. But being there and speaking English, you could get a job. And I stayed there 2 years. I worked on about 100 films, French, Italian, German, British, American, and learned my craft.
So I look at your early resume and I see Kentucky Fried Movie, as I mentioned to you, Animal House, just a succession of great comedies that kind of defined their era. And yet you cut your teeth on all these big blockbusters. Your inspiration was a movie that was decidedly not a comedy. How did that go? How did that happen?
I've actually always kind of disagreed with the premise. You know, directors get typed exactly like actors. So if you've done something that makes money, which means it's successful, that's what you do. So you're a horror filmmaker, you're a comedy filmmaker. But the truth is, the director's job, regardless of genre, is exactly the same. Whether it's a Western or a romance, big production, small production, the director's job remains the same, which is put the camera there, you guys do this. You know, it could be you 8,000 guys do this, or you 3 guys do this. But the job is identical. So I've never really, I've suffered from that because, you know, I love Westerns. I love Westerns. You're riding on horses, it's really fun. And I've worked on 60 Westerns, but I've only made really one, and that was a comedy, Three Amigos. And they go, Landis, a Western? No, let them, you know, make a comedy. So that's what you get to do. And it's not hard for me, so it's okay.
But you're telling me that some of those directors, the makers of some of those great World War II movies, could have gotten a performance out of John Belushi like you did in Animal House?
I don't know. I mean, we were all so young. I mean, I was 27. I was one of the oldest people there. I mean, the actors were all terribly young, and most of them from Broadway, but it was their first film. You know, we had one big movie star, Donald Sutherland, who did me the favor of 2 days' work on the picture, which is why they greenlit it. I think I was too young to realize, you know, how I'm still amazed I was given that job. I was 27, I'd made Kentucky Fried Movie, which hadn't come out when we were shooting, you know. I wasn't hired because that made so much money. It did very well when it came out. I was hired, I think, because Ned Tannen didn't have a clue what the hell this screenplay was. And I was championed by a young Universal executive named Sean Daniel. And his girlfriend, Catherine Wooten, was the script girl, or continuity person, on Kentucky Fried Movie. And that's why I came in. I mean, what's so interesting about Animal House is who they offered it to. Alan Pakula, John Schlesinger, George Roy Hill. Just a whole list of directors who sort of read it and went, what the hell is this? The script for Animal House, Doug Kenney, Harold Ramis, and Chris Miller, 3 very smart and funny guys. And the script was probably the funniest thing I've ever read. It was also truly offensive. It was racist, it was misogynist, it was anti-Semitic, just like the National Lampoon, you know. And my major contribution, I think, was I told them I love the opportunity to make this movie, but you have to let me supervise the writers doing a rewrite, because everyone can't be a pig, you know. And so I basically had a good guys and bad guys. But that was, you know, we were remarkably left alone making that movie.
As you were making your way as a director, was there a movie or series that came along, you watched it, and it was so good it made you question, man, can I ever really rise to this level?
There were so many great films. Yeah, you know, in the 60s and 70s, even a little bit into the 80s, if you look at the films that were coming out, it's an incredible time. And Stanley Kubrick and Sidney Lumet and Federico Fellini and so many people, Bergman, were making films. We'd go to the movies and see these great films. I mean, I think some of Kubrick's films just, they didn't, I don't know if I think I have to rise to that, but they're certainly inspirational. Well, Dr. Strangelove, I think, is almost perfect because it never gets old. I mean, I watched that movie and it never gets old. Plus, what it's about is still very real. And in terms of atomic warfare, nuclear war, it's unthinkable. So, you know, you look now, who has the bomb? Who has the bomb? Who does? India, Pakistan, France, England, Russia. What Soviet satellite has it? You know, I mean, it's incredible who has these weapons. And what's brilliant about the film, do you know the difference between satire and parody? Parody is like Airplane. It's making fun of. And parody can be great or not, but the truth is, it's not hard. I mean, if you're funny, you can do it. And satire, however, must succeed as the genre you're satirizing. So there are very few works that live up to that. And Strangelove is not only a wonderfully funny movie about nuclear war, it's also the best movie about nuclear war. And it's kind of extraordinary. That's an amazing accomplishment. And the performances from George C. Scott and Keenan Wynn and Slim Pickens and who else? I mean, you know, and obviously Peter Sellers. There's a level, Sterling Hayden. There's a level of performance in that is so extraordinary. That's an amazing movie. Yeah. Also, you know, obviously 2001 has huge impact on me.
Well now, whether it was a success of your own work or maybe approval from someone whose opinion mattered to you, what first gave you the confidence that, yeah, I do belong. I can do this too?
Well, I know I can do it. It's not that hard, you know. I got in trouble once because I said, if you can drive a car, you can direct a movie. Everyone got very upset with me. But the truth is, the mechanism for film production, first we got to remember, cinema is what, 120 years old? 30 years? It's not even 150 years old. It's brand new. And montage, which is the juxtaposition of images to create a narrative, tell a story, it's kind of incredible how recent this all is. And there are always technology changes. Like now you can't say film anymore because it's mostly digital. So you say motion picture. The same thing. But the point is, I think once you get the craft down, it's not that hard. I mean, it really isn't. Also, the mechanism set up since the silence. You have a first AD, you know, a second AD, a third AD, production assistants, production manager. The train, the engine that's set up to make a film. I mean, my wife and I were both, Deborah, the dual-man Landis, is now she's a distinguished professor who has a chair at UCLA. But she was, or is, but was a very successful costume designer. I mean, last night, for instance, Deborah designed Raiders of the Lost Ark. So she designed many films, including, I once said, I wish I had a nickel for every knockoff of those jackets, because I made something called Thriller with Michael Jackson, and she made that red jacket with the thing. I thought, damn. But anyway, the craftspeople who make a movie, it's quite something. Movies are alchemy, you know, because they're going to get made. Once everyone's been hired and you're off to the races. I have worked on films where the director hadn't a clue what we were doing. And the movie was really made by the cinematographer, or sometimes continuity person, or sometimes the AD, and sadly, sometimes the movie star. But the movie gets made. Yeah. And the question is it a great movie? Is it a good movie? Obviously, a tremendous amount of that has to do with the screenplay. But I have seen writers hate this. But I'm a member of the Guild myself. I've written a lot of movies, but I have seen very good screenplays made into bad movies. The director fucked it. And I've seen very mediocre scripts made into wonderful movies. So it always, it's alchemy, you know? You can't, there's no way to say it. And the other thing that's so interesting is how the mechanics of it. I was a mail boy at 20th Century Fox. My wife and I, Deborah and I, were very successful very early. And I always compare it to the scene in Fantasia. Remember the dinosaurs crawling across the... We lived through the death of the studios. You know, we really did. I mean, all the studios were functioning as movie factories when I was a teenager. And slowly they all, you know, I had, through the grace of Lew Wasserman, really, I had an office, a building on the Universal lot. And I remember just going, oh my God, the tour. They got the mill. Holy shit, it got wardrobe. They tore down the makeup building. You know, it was like cancer. The tour was coming over. And it was, I was making a movie called Three Amigos, and I had the carpenters come and build this big fence around my office, so that the tourists would leave me alone. Because, you know, they built all these rides and stuff down there. And sadly, after 24 years of being on that lot, they tore down my building, and it's now where you wait in line for Jurassic Park, the ride. But my point is that the studios, Blues Brothers, ironically, is the last movie made in Hollywood under the old studio system, meaning Universal still had its departments. Its camera department, its electrical department, its wardrobe department. Now, when you make a film, every production reinvents the wheel. You create your own prop department and your own, you know, and it's fascinating. And with the new, look, you're shooting with, you know, features are shot on that little camera. And it's amazing.
Was there somebody, like you mentioned, Blues Brothers, someone like Lew Wasserman, who would look at you and say, kid, that was a good one?
Not the Blues Brothers, I'll tell you. No, Lew Wasserman. It was funny. I know that the executives who were in charge of the Blues Brothers were being brutalized every day. And whenever I would see Ned or Lou, they'd say, how's it going, John? Keep it up. Good for you. And then they turn around and crucify these guys. Somehow, never reached me.
What would you say was the biggest obstacle that you had to overcome to allow you to turn the projects that influenced you into your own language as a filmmaker?
Honestly, you can legitimately say that I have been extremely influential, my movies, which is different than saying they're good, but they really have impacted other filmmakers. This again is sacrilege, but I never really think of myself as an artist. I think of myself as a craftsperson. And like any craft, such as carpentry or painting or sculpture, you know, some people are Michelangelo and some people are Rembrandt or Picasso. You know, how do I explain? I'm not comparing myself to those guys. What I'm saying is that, take carpentry. If you give 4 guys the same wood and the same veneers and the same nails and planes and hammers and saws and say, make me a chair, they will all make you a chair, and you'll be able to sit in it, and it'll be a chair. But what if one of those guys was Charles Eames or Chippendale or something, you know? Craft elevates into art. And there are people, I have many friends who consider themselves artists. But I find that kind of obnoxious myself, but that's just me. That's me. I consider myself a craftsperson. There are things I'm good at, but, you know, it all depends on the materials you're given and the money you're given and the quality of your actors. And that's the thing people don't understand. You want to hear something interesting? Yeah. What no one has ever understood about the movies is the economics of it are fascinating and always have been. Because when it was Nickelodeon, you paid a nickel. Whatever it is you pay at the box office, it's a lot now. It's like $10 or more or something. But the point is, the quality of the movie doesn't impact the cost to the consumer. So you can go see a movie that they spent $300 million making and has big movie stars and very expensive special effects and all these Oscar winners involved, and they charge you $10. And you can go see a piece of crap that, you know, was made for $600,000 and is pathetic and one day will become a cult movie because it's so sad. But the truth is, you pay $10. Think about that. There's not one product, nothing that you and I buy where that's true. Not shoes, not food, not clothing. It all depends on the quality and you know, it's always amazed me that we can go see Rules of the Game for whatever it costs, or Psycho. I mean, you can go see truly amazing works of art for the same price. You can go see one, you know, some bad Disney remake of a genius cartoon, you know. It's extraordinary.